Yeshua commissioned Yohanan to write the things you have seen. Yeshua in his brilliant, glorified body. Write the things which are now, the things that are happening in the assemblies of those who purport to follow him, but are in serious need of correction. And write the things that must come to pass in the future. Just like Yohanan, we need to understand that Yeshua has changed. His hair is shocking snow white. His eyes red as fire. When he speaks, the heavens shake. He has been given all power and all authority as the Almighty Judge who will rule the earth with a rod of iron. To see him as he is, we too would fall down like a dead man at his feet. If we are going to begin to comprehend the things that he wants his servants to know about the future, we must understand who Yeshua is today and that he is preparing his servants for the most desperate time on planet Earth, a time in which he says that there would no flesh be saved without his timely intervention. Yeshua said that false prophets are going to teach that he is coming back in secret before great tribulation comes to the earth. He said, don't listen to them. Do not believe them. Don't follow them. These are the things that Yeshua said must come to pass in the last days. The Apostle John was not expecting it, nor could anything have prepared him for what he was about to experience. A trumpet blast transported him to the day of the Lord, in which he saw Yeshua in his resurrected body, his eyes a flame of fire, his hair and beard shocking white, his garment brighter than the noonday sun. His voice shook the heavens. Yeshua told Yohanan to write the things that he had just seen, the things which are now, and finally, the things that will be hereafter. A door opened above him in the heavens. Another trumpet blast rang out. Come up hither, and I will show you things that must come to pass in the future. Immediately, Yohanan found himself in the throne room of the Almighty. The glory could not be described in terms that any human had ever imagined, but he tried. Piercing light, breaking into the colors of the rainbow, igniting the heavens with dazzling gems. Lightning cracked, thunder roared, the entire universe shook. Before the throne was a sea of fire and glass, a flaming crystal mirror. Surrounding an emerald throne were 4 terrifying living creatures, unlike any creature upon the earth. Each had 6 wings with penetrating eyes that saw everything in a glance. The creatures looked like a lion, an ox, a man, an eagle. They shouted, "Holy!" and the rafters of the heavens shook. "Holy!" they cried, and Yohanan had no strength to even take a breath. "Holy!" And 24 white-bearded elders around the crystal sea fell from their thrones, casting their golden crowns at the feet of the one who sat on the throne. "Holy, holy, holy," they cried. Hayah, Asher Hayah, which was, which is, and which is to come. Yehovah, Elohim, the Almighty. The voices of the 24 elders joined in the chorus. You, O Yehovah, have created all things, and for your pleasure all things exist. You alone are worthy of all honor and glory and power forever and ever and ever. Amen. John was taken to the throne room for Yeshua to reveal a truth that no one had ever seen. He began to describe the throne room with words that fail to apprehend. The sea of fire and glass before the throne was the heavenly reality that Moses symbolized in the construction of the earthly brazen laver. The laver, or brass sea, was made by melting down the finest brass mirrors of Egyptian royalty. Those mirrors once sported the image of Hathor, the Egyptian goddess of fertility, the Egyptian version of Easter, the Babylonian sex goddess. The brazen laver was polished to a mirror finish and filled with the waters of purification. The priests were required to inspect themselves in that mirror and wash away any soot, blood, or blemish before and after they approached the altar of God. The brazen laver depicted the coming day of judgment, the gathering of the saints for judgment and reward on the sea of fire and glass that precedes admittance into the marriage supper of the Lamb. The 24 elders seated around the throne are not angels. Angels are angels, and dead men do not become angels. They remain in the grave until one of the four resurrections of which Yeshua, Yohanan, and Shaul speak. By revelation, Shaul, Paul stated, all men shall be made alive in their own order or chronology. First, Messiah. Second, the firstfruits. Third, those who are Messiahs at his coming, his parousia. His saints, whether living or dead, will be resurrected with an incorruptible body, like that with which Yeshua was raised. His saints who are still living at the time of his return, the mortal must be clothed with a new immortal body. Flesh and blood, this physical body, cannot inherit the kingdom of heaven. You must be born again. Some call this coming of Yeshua to gather his saints the rapture, from the Latin rapturo, which was translated from the Greek harpazo. In English, it is most often translated as caught up or gathering together. This momentous event was revealed by Yeshua to both Paul and John as happening at the last trumpet. Yeshua promises that it will transpire just before the first bowl of God's wrath is poured out upon those who destroyed the earth. Paul said we will be saved from the wrath to come, speaking of God's wrath, but no one is exempt from Satan's wrath. Yes, after the rapture, or gathering together, at the last trump in the book of the Revelation, there is one more resurrection in Paul's list, and at the end of the Revelation chronology. 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 24, the King James Version reads, then cometh the end. The word cometh is in italics because it is not in any Greek text. It was added by translators. That is why it is in italics, but it was added incorrectly. It should simply read, then the end. This is the end resurrection, when Yeshua shall have reigned upon the earth until he's brought down all principalities and powers, and finally delivered up the kingdom to God the Father. This is the fourth and final resurrection, in which every man, woman, and child will be made alive, judged, rewarded, or punished. Though the gathering of the saints is detailed at the last trumpet, when Yeshua's righteous servants and the prophets are raised from the dead and rewarded, it is after the 1,000-year reign of Yeshua that the end, the final resurrection, transpires. There are only 4 times in which the dead are raised. So who are these 24 crowned elders? And from whence do they come?
Waiting without knowing when an answer will come takes patience and discipline, a test of faith that many of the most famous people in the Bible failed. Even the apostles fell into the trap of impatience early in the book of Acts. Michael Rood reveals the story behind the apostles' test of faith in Learning to Walk by the Spirit, a special teaching available only in October.
In the Acts, the apostles were told to go to Jerusalem and wait. They were led by their flesh to vote Matthias into the number of the apostles, but Yeshua had another plan.
Learning to Walk by the Spirit is not on YouTube and it's not available for sale. But we'll send you this exclusive teaching as our thanks for your love gift donation in October of just $50. Or with a donation of $100 or more, we'll send you the teaching plus a magnificent model of the Second Temple. Call now or visit us online to pledge your support and receive these exclusive gifts. Act quickly. Make your love gift donation now.
Paul tells us by divine revelation, everyone will be made alive in their own order, tagma, their own time-ordered sequence. Messiah, comma, the firstfruits, comma, those who are Messiahs at his coming, comma, then the end, comma, when he shall have delivered up the kingdom to God the Father. The King James translation team neglected to put a comma separating the resurrections of Messiah and the firstfruits. But we must remember that all punctuation is interpretation, not translation. There is no punctuation in any Hebrew or Greek text of the Bible. The resurrection of the firstfruits, saints, is detailed in Matthew chapter 27, verse 53. When Yeshua had cried with a loud voice, he yielded up the ghost. The veil of the temple was torn from top to the bottom. The earth quaked, the rocks rent, and the graves were opened. After Yeshua's resurrection, the body of many saints that were dead arose. They came out of their graves, went into the holy city, and appeared unto many. The Julian calendar was instituted by Rome 42 years before Yeshua's birth. The year of Yeshua's crucifixion, the year 28 of the Common Era, the Passover lamb was sacrificed on the afternoon of Wednesday, April 28th. It was on the Creator's calendar, the 14th day of the month of the Aviv barley, after the Babylonian captivity, also called the month of Nisan. The Passover was always killed on the 14th, regardless the day of the week or date on a pagan calendar. But it was on that particular Wednesday that Yeshua was sacrificed as the Lamb of God, of which the Passover lamb was a prophetic shadow picture. In his detailed account of the crucifixion, John stated the urgency of getting Yeshua and the others off the cross and into the grave before sunset, because at sunset, Nisan 15, the high Sabbath that commenced the Feast of Unleavened Bread began. It was not the weekly Sabbath that was approaching. The crucifixion was not on Friday. Every one of the Feast of the Lord begin and end with a high Sabbath. Doesn't everyone know that? Every Israelite did. The life cycle of Israel in the first century was determined by the celebration of the Feast of the Lord in conjunction with the Creator's calendar, as detailed in Leviticus chapter 23. The modern Jewish calendar was still more than 300 years into the future. Only by ignoring both the Torah and the gospel records can one come up with a Good Friday, Dagon the Assyrian fish god worship festival Crucifixion Day, and then have the resurrection occur on Easter, the Babylonian sex goddess Sunday. Even Einstein could not get 3 days and 3 nights between those two pagan sun god worship festivals. Yeshua was Jewish, not a Babylonian sun god worshiper. Yeshua's most repeated and most ignored prophecy in the entirety of Christendom: there will be one and only one sign of his authenticity. One sign you had the true Messiah, the sign of the prophet Jonah. As Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the great fish, so Yeshua said that he would be 3 days and 3 nights in the grave, in the heart of the earth, and raised on the 3rd day. When Yeshua cried with a loud voice, "It is finished," the earth quaked, the rocks rent, and graves were opened. The earthquake opened the graves on Wednesday afternoon, the same time that the priests were marking out the 10 standing shocks of Aviv barley, a mile away on the side of the Mount of Olives. By ancient order of the prophet King David, those sheaves would be harvested after sunset at the end of the weekly Sabbath, 3 days and 3 nights later. At sunset, Wednesday, April 28th, the high Sabbath of the Feast of Unleavened Bread began. Yeshua was put in the grave just before sunset and was dead in the grave all Wednesday night, all Thursday night, and all Friday night, 3 nights, just as he prophesied. Yeshua was in the grave all the high Sabbath on Thursday, all day on Friday, all day on Saturday, the weekly Sabbath, and he was raised on the Sabbath on the 3rd day, just as the scriptures report. However, sunset at the end of the weekly Sabbath begins the day of the first fruits. When Yeshua arose on the Sabbath, 3 days and 3 nights after his burial, he waited until sunset, and then he raised those whose graves were opened by the earthquake on the previous Wednesday afternoon. Those saints were the firstfruits of whom Paul speaks. Messiah, comma, the firstfruits, comma. The morning following the weekly Sabbath, during the Feast of Unleavened Bread, is when the high priest presented the firstfruits of the barley harvest in the earthly temple. After the temple was destroyed, the Pharisees changed the day of first fruits, but they could not change the historic reckoning, the prophetic reality of Moses' instructions, or King David's revelation. According to the official temple liturgy, after the Passover lambs were sacrificed and the 10 standing shocks of barley were marked for harvest, the high priest was secluded in the Temple Mount, Mount Moriah, and untouched by anyone who could contaminate him until after he presented the first fruits of the barley in the holy temple. Likewise, Yeshua was in seclusion in the garden tomb beneath the highest peak of Mount Moriah, which is north of the city wall of Jerusalem. The presentation of the firstfruits was a prophetic shadow picture of what Yeshua would accomplish as the eternal high priest the morning after his resurrection. When Miriam came to the grave early in the morning, it was still dark. The 4th day, which began at sunset the previous evening, had not yet dawned. Yet the grave was empty. She saw what she presumed in the darkness was a gardener. She cried, "Where have you taken my master, please, sir? Where have you put him?" The gardener answered her one word, "Miriam." She knew that voice. She burst into tears, ran to embrace his feet. Yeshua stepped back. "Do not touch me. I have not yet ascended to my Father in heaven. Go tell my disciples that I will now ascend to my Father and their Father, to my God and their God." Yeshua, now as the high priest after the order of Melchizedek, takes those saints who he raised from the dead after he arose and presented them to his Father in the heavenly temple as the firstfruits from the dead. Now those 24 crowned elders on their thrones of gold are awaiting the gathering together of those who are Messiahs at his coming. After Yeshua presented the firstfruits in the throne room of heaven, he returned to the earth and intercepted the other women who were returning from the tomb with their unused burial spices. Yeshua greeted them, "Yehovah Yoshia, Yehovah saves you." The women then rushed to him and held him by his feet. The sanctified high priest had already presented the firstfruits in the heavenly temple and can now be touched by the congregation of Israel. I looked and saw in the right hand of him that sat on the throne a scroll written within, and on the backside sealed with 7 seals. A mighty angel proclaimed with a loud voice, Who is worthy to open the scroll? Who is worthy to loose the seals?" But no man in heaven nor in earth, neither under the earth, was able to open the scroll. Yohanan wept. There was no man worthy to even look. There was no hope. Yohanan was taken by the Spirit to the throne room and saw the unspeakable glory of God. But when he saw the scroll in the right hand of Yeshuova, he began to weep in anguish. The scroll had been bound with 7 seals that no man or beast had the authority to strip from the scroll. All was lost. Hopelessness swept a chilling wind across the sea of fire and glass. Yohanan wept before the 24 elders. He sank to his knees before the 4 magnificent beasts surrounding the throne. What is this scroll? What are these seals which keep it inextricably bound? Though his primary mission was covert, and Daniel recorded that Messiah had exactly 70 weeks, 490 days to fulfill his mission, Yeshua let us know at the beginning of his ministry what this scroll and his mission entailed. On the day of his baptism, Yeshua was driven by the Spirit into the wilderness where he fasted for 40 days and 40 nights. When the 40 days were finished, on the 41st day, he was hungry, and Hasatan, the adversary, came to tempt him. Satan took him up to a high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of this world in a moment of time. Satan said to him, "All the kingdoms and the riches and the glory of this world have been delivered into my hand, and to whomsoever I will, I give it. Bow down and worship me, and all this will be yours." Yeshua never challenged Satan's authority or his jurisdiction, but he flatly refused the offer. There was another plan in play. Yeshua knew that Adam was made the god of this world. He was given the authority and dominion over creation and the sole responsibility to steward its resources. But Adam, by his act of blatant disobedience, by his act of rebellion, transferred his authority into the hands of Satan. Shaul also acknowledged this transference of power. He stated plainly that Satan, the god of this world, the god of this age, has blinded the minds of those who do not believe, who do not understand that he holds that power legally. He can deliver a piece of his new world order to anyone and everyone who bows the knee to him. The scroll in the right hand of the Almighty is the legal title deed to this world. There is no man, living or dead, who has the authority to take that scroll and to strip Satan's legal authority as the god of this age. Adam was originally given that authority, but that authority and all of mankind's subsequent accomplishments have been delivered into the hand of Satan through Adam's act of treason. All that man has accomplished, the good, the bad, and the ugly, was done under that authority. All has been lost. There is no hope. But then one of the 24 elders cried out, "Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the offspring of King David, has prevailed. He alone has the authority to loose the seals and to open the scroll." Yohanan looked into the blazing light of the throne room and saw Yeshua, as a slain lamb, come to the great throne and take the scroll from the right hand of his heavenly Father. The 24 elders fell on their faces before Yeshua and broke open gold vials of incense filled with the prayers of his saints who pled for justice, for mercy, for deliverance throughout the millennia. They broke into a song that acknowledged that Yeshua alone, out of every man who has ever lived, he alone is able to take the scroll and to strip Satan's authority from the title deed of this world. Satan is the god of this age. When he sheds blood, it is the guilty blood of Adam's offspring. All the pain and suffering in this world is under his jurisdiction. Hundreds of millions have been slain on the battlefield of avarice and religion. Disease, pain, and sorrow is the heritage of Adam's children, who foolishly blamed God when it was Adam's irrevocable choice. But something changed in the universe when Satan spilled the innocent blood, Yeshua's innocent blood. The contract that Adam delivered to Satan was nullified. As Shaul articulated so covertly yet so apropos, if Satan would have known this mystery, that in shedding the innocent blood, he would have nullified his authority over this world, neither he nor the princes who have bowed the knee to him would have crucified the Lord of glory. Yeshua, Jesus, who knew no sin, was willingly slain in the place of the guilty party, Adam. Yeshua has bought us back from the power of Satan. He has redeemed to God out of every kindred and tongue and people and nation, and he has made us kings and priests to our God. Kings and priests who will reign with him upon the earth once Satan is finally deposed and cast into the bottomless pit for 1,000 years. The roar of a multitude of angels, 10,000 times 10,000 and thousands upon thousands, ring out in symphony. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain to receive power and riches and wisdom and strength and honor and glory and blessing. He paid the price of pain and suffering and humiliation and death when he could have bowed the knee and received the entire world as the immediate prize. Yeshua must now take his throne by force. He will rule the world with a rod of iron justice and uncompromising love. Satan's authority has been broken, but all that is in the world, all that man has accomplished under his influence, must be completely destroyed. Yeshua must strip the seals of Satan's authority over this earth, and it is going to get bloody before the smoke clears on the sea of fire and glass. It is on this bleak and desolate Isle of Patmos that John received the revelation of Yeshua as the Messiah, the Almighty Judge who will rule the earth with absolute power and authority. Though the rulers of this world conspire against Yehovah and against the Messiah, the Almighty will have them in derision as their plans of global dominion are incinerated before their eyes. The minions who have bowed at the feet of Satan for their piece of the New World Order will have their hopes dashed upon the rock as Yeshua destroys those who attempt to annihilate Israel and nullify the everlasting covenant God made with his people. Yes, all of the land from the Euphrates to the Nile belongs to the sons of Israel. Every nation that stands against that covenant will find itself on the battlefield against the Almighty. I'm Michael Rood, bidding you shalom, peace. I will see you on the sea of fire and glass when the smoke clears.